And here we are live, lunch and learn time. Really excited to be on with everybody today. And most importantly, on here with Brooke Sloat, Director of Product Development. And my goodness, Brooke, we have learned so much from you over these last several weeks with these lunch and learns. I think you're getting fans from all over who are joining in to learn what they can about being a great pet parent. And I know you've got some more great tips for us today.
I do. So are we ready to jump in?
I think so. This is, I'm excited because, we've talked about various issues. I think, just to kind of set the stage for those who are watching, maybe, this may be the first time you've joined us for a lunch and learn. And I know a lot of people will join after and kind of watch the replay. We've been enjoying these and having an opportunity to basically just take different topics and learn from Brooke and her expertise on around topics that would help us be better pet parents, right? Just feel more empowered as pet parents to make good decisions for our pets, to be comfortable and confident in knowledge. And so there's a lot of great topics that Brooke has shared with us, and today is no different. We're going to talk about nutrition for our pets. So, you want to just dive in, Brooke?
We can absolutely dive in. So, so a lot of times, there's a lot of information that's on the pet food bags, right? And I'm going to show you how to read, or what you want to really focus on, what you want to look at, and what things mean. So the first thing I'm going to talk about today is what we call, or what is called, the guaranteed analysis. Okay, so I'm holding up a bag of poultry food. So it's just a bag of dog food. And on the back of the bag, and this would be for many companies, the guaranteed analysis would be on the back of the bag, maybe sometimes on the side of the bag, depending. But the guaranteed analysis is this thing that has all these numbers, okay? And at minimum, the guaranteed analysis is going to show you the minimum percentages of crude protein and crude fat, and the maximum percentages of crude fiber and crude fiber and moisture. So this recipe, for instance, guarantees 30% crude protein, and that's a minimum. Okay, so that means that there's actually more than 30% in the formula, but we guarantee a minimum, and everybody does. These are the AFCO rules. Proteins are minimums, fats are minimums. And this has a crude fat of 15%. Okay. And also, by the way, the term crude actually just refers to the specific method of testing the product, not the quality of the nutrient itself. Okay. So now we have a lot of other guarantees here as well with our products. Okay. For this product, we guarantee calcium and phosphorus because we make the claim balanced calcium and phosphorus for bone and tooth health. We guarantee taurine because we make the claim contains taurine to support heart and eye health. DHA because we make the claim natural source of DHA supports a healthy brain development and overall brain health. We also guarantee omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids because we make the claim contains omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids for a healthy skin and coat. And we also guarantee glucosamine because we make the claim a good source of natural glucosamine to maintain joint health. So I hope that makes sense. If people are making claims on their bags, so here you see the claims, some of the claims on our bags, right? They must guarantee, to make that claim, you must guarantee that ingredient is in your food.
It's helpful to kind of understand all this because, again, I know all of us are pet parents. We've been buying pet food for quite some time, and there's a whole range of, I think, comfort level that we have in terms of our ability to understand what these these words are saying on the package or not. And maybe, a lot of us probably look at that as, oh, that's the fine print. I don't need to worry about it. And but we want to empower you to, if you choose to look into this and understand what these things are saying, you'll feel empowered to do so and feel confident in that. So I think that's a great one. Every pet food, anything that's considered a feed has a guaranteed analysis, right? And so that helps us understand why some are maximums, some are minimums, and kind of how to digest that piece of the package. So that is helpful. What about, is there anything else on guaranteed analysis you wanted to talk about?
No, I think that sums it up right there. I think we can move on.
Okay, so if you think about a package, you've got, you turn it over, usually you see the guaranteed analysis, and then somewhere, usually kind of in that same area, you see what's called the ingredient, list, ingredient panel, something about the ingredient statement. How can you help? Usually that's a little bit overwhelming also for a lot of pet parents, I think, to kind of digest that. And, in pet food, because it's complete and balanced, it generally does have a lot of, kind of a long list of things. How can you help us, maybe give us a few tips on how to read that ingredient panel and be more confident in understanding what we're getting?
Okay. So again, I'm looking at ours, okay, and it's usually the thing that looks like a big paragraph of information, okay. So first of all, the ingredients are listed in the order of inclusion in the formula, okay. So this one, ours reads turkey, then turkey meal, dried peas, dried chickpeas, chicken fat, dried sweet potato, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so that would mean that turkey, real fresh turkey, is the first ingredient, and is the most, the highest ranking ingredient. Turkey meal would be next, dried peas, dried chickpeas, et cetera. You're also going to see areas where it'll list vitamins, and then it'll list minerals, and then it'll list if there's probiotics. You'll see those listed, and there's just, especially the probiotics, there's a lot of big words in that, but all they are the probiotics that we use. So, or that the company uses if in fact the food that you're feeding has probiotics in it.
Okay, so what about, there's something that I see on packages all the time that say, like if it's chicken or turkey or whatever, it'll say like turkey meal or meat meal. What can you tell us about that?
Okay, so that's a very interesting point, Roger, that you bring up, and it's very important. You always want what we call a named meat meal on the label. This way, you know what's in the bag. So for instance, if it says turkey meal or chicken meal or lamb meal or salmon meal, you know what animal, where that meal is coming from. If you see the word meat meal, I would walk away. You do not know what that quote meat could actually be, and you may not want to know what that meat may actually be. So if you want a named meat meal always.
Okay, wonderful. That's helpful. And
obviously very important too that you guys realize that.
Okay, good. These are good tips, helping us feel more confident as pet parents, understanding these things. They all have purpose and meaning. There's a reason that these words are on the package. Most of us don't know what that reason is.
Yeah, and that's the purpose of these Lunch and Learns. We want to educate you guys to know what's important out there, what do things mean, so that you're more comfortable in reading your labels and just understanding, what you're feeding your babies.
Okay, wonderful. Now, one of the things that I've always been taught, and I think it's generally true, but you can help us here, there may be some exception to this, but are the ingredients always listed in the order of kind of importance, or how much they're included in the recipe?
That is a fabulous question, Roger, because we get asked this a lot, or rather, I see people talking about this a lot, but there is a fallacy out there. So, when a package has a guaranteed analysis, okay, so it lists all the GAs, which is a guaranteed analysis, like food products and treats and feed supplements. The ingredients are listed in the order of inclusion, right? So turkey's first, turkey meal is second, depending on, what the package is, right? However, packages, and I'm going to show you, so here's our brain drops, okay? Packages that list active ingredients. So they don't have a guaranteed analysis, but they list active ingredients, no guaranteed analysis. Many supplements do that. The inactive ingredients are listed in alphabetical order. So for instance, on this one, it says brewer's yeast. And you might say, well, gee, there's, the number one ingredient in here. I've seen this where people say, well, the first ingredient is brewer's yeast. That's a lot of brewer's yeast. No, it's that it begins with a B and it's first. So on supplements that are not feed supplements, but the easiest way for you guys to remember this and, is if you don't see a guaranteed analysis, or if you see the word active ingredients, those words, then the inactive ingredients are listed in alphabetical order, not by order of inclusion.
Okay, that's helpful. I think because there are so many rules, I think what I'm going to do as a consumer to think about that is if I see alphabetical, if I start to see B and then a thing with a D and then a thing with an F, I'm going to just know, well, that must apply to the, this is one of those exceptions where it's not in order of, inclusion, kind of in order of importance. That'll be an easy way to check.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, there are a lot of rules. What about this is a little bit harder because on the package, one package might say turkey, another package might say turkey. Does that mean they're equally good or equally kind of the same because both bags of food say the word turkey and have it first in the in the ingredient list?
Again, an interesting question. And when you're comparing two products, it is difficult, okay? Because even if they both say turkey or they both say salmon first, that doesn't mean that they're the same, that they have the same inclusion. There is also a difference in the quality of ingredients being used as well.
Yeah.
So if you think of it this way, when you go to a grocery store and you want to buy some beef, you can get anything from ground chuck to a rib roast, right? And everything in between. And it's all beef, right? But each cut is different and has a different price tag. It's the same with pet food. In life, in general, you get what you pay for. So not all salmon is the same type of salmon. Some is wild caught, some is, from the Atlantic. There's all different types of proteins out there. And just because they both say turkey doesn't mean it's the same quality of turkey that you're getting in one recipe versus another.
That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. Now, for a moment, I'm just kind of also watching the chat and some of the questions. We've got a question when we were talking about meal, so don't want to get too far from that for a moment. The question is, what is meal? Can you help us understand that difference? Why do products use meal at all? Turkey versus turkey meal, and what is that?
So meal is a very good source of protein. Meal is basically the protein. So let's just take turkey for example. So it's turkey that is rendered. You take the fat out, you take the moisture out, and there's a lot less wet weight to it. So you get a lot of protein from it. So it's just rendered meat, basically.
Okay, wonderful. That's helpful. Another question here on probiotics. If the question is, if probiotics lose strength due to air, does the probiotics in food lose strength from cooking and being open to the air every time we open the bag. And this may be a different answer depending on the brand of food or the type of probiotic. So I know the answer may not be a one size fits all to every brand of pet food, but can you help us understand a little bit, when people see probiotics on a bag of food, how does that work?
So with probiotics, there are different types of probiotics that are out there, and there are different claims that are made for probiotics. And so if someone is guaranteeing probiotics, then that would mean that you would see in the guaranteed analysis the listing of probiotics and how many CFUs, et cetera, that they have in their food. We don't personally guarantee the probiotics. A lot of people, or some companies, many companies do not, because of exactly this question. Probiotics may not make the full strength of though we put a lot in and try and get as much in as we can. There is the cooking process, and you're right, when you open it up, time and time again, it gets exposed to air. We do guarantee prebiotics because the prebiotics feed the probiotics. So we guarantee that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And I just want to make sure that I think we did cover this on the meal, but just a couple of the questions came up, and hard to tell if they came after your comment or before you already explained, but two questions around, one question said, I hear that named meal isn't good. Please explain how turkey meal is made. I think you covered that, but if there's anything else you wanted to add there. And then also a question around what is rendering.
Rendering is the process of removing the moisture and removing the fat from the meat.
Wonderful. So. Thank you. This is good. You're getting lots of good shout outs. There's lots of information that this is new to people. And that's, again, what these Lunch and Learns are all about, is to help empower us as average, everyday pet pros and customers and pet, parents to, to feel empowered and, have more confidence in what we're doing for our pets. So excellent. Okay.
And I just want to make sure people understand meal is a good thing. It is not a bad thing. Okay. You would not be able to make a kibble out of pure meat. You need to have you need to balance out, and you need to, so that it would hold together, you need to have some meal in there. So meal is not a bad thing. Just make sure it is a named meal, named meat meal.
Excellent. That's a really good tip. That's right. Because some people, I think some of us, we've read labels in the past might say things like, made with chicken byproduct meal. And so, we automatically assume, just like if it was made with chicken byproduct or chicken byproduct meal, that that must mean that meal's bad because byproduct is bad. And of course, we at Pottery don't use any byproduct in our food or any of our products, but I suspect it's very similar, where yes, just like all meat isn't the same, how you explained, a filet mignon versus a ground beef or something like that. Different meat is different. I guess it's similar with the meal. A byproduct meal would be a different experience than a chicken meal or a turkey meal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
Okay, that's really good. It is one of the things, I know it is true in almost every part of our life, that you get what you pay for. And so that's why I think understanding these things is helpful. And again, not that we can always tell by the package, if it says chicken or turkey or et cetera, salmon, exactly what quality chicken or turkey or salmon went into that. But some of these things can tell us the difference, whether it's a named meal source or a general meat meal, or whether it includes the words byproduct or if it, doesn't, or whether it, at the beginning of the, ingredient statement or, further in. All of these tips are helpful for us. And obviously at the end of the day, the closer that we can get to, really understanding the quality and integrity of the brands that we support, the more confidence we have that all those things that, some are being disclosed and are required, and you can see right on the package, but other parts of that process, you don't really know. There's no way of really knowing exactly which meat, which chicken went into the food, etc. So knowing that you've got a brand that you can trust is also very helpful in giving you confidence that you're doing the right thing for your pets, in addition to what you're reading on the label, that you have confidence in that brand and the integrity of that company, that they have made a history of doing the right thing. Which I think is a wonderful addition to kind of what you're talking about, Brooke.
Yeah, no, it's very, very good point, Roger. And, the purpose of this is we just want to help people have a better understanding, period, so that they can feel more confident in whatever they're feeding, and giving their four-legged friends, because it's very important for our kids.
Wonderful. All right, so can we shift gears a little bit? I think there's still a little bit more here to cover. One thing, when people are comparing maybe like a dry food bag of kibble to canned food or wet food, what tips can you give us, in terms of comparing those, and can we compare? Should we compare?
This has come up a number of times, and I think that it's just important for you guys to understand. Okay, so when you compare a dry food to a canned food, you're going to see that the levels of crude protein and other nutrients are much lower for the canned product, much lower on the label. Okay, and this can be explained by looking at the moisture content. Canned foods typically contain between 78 and 82% moisture, whereas dry foods contain only 10 to 12% moisture. So to compare the two, they need to be expressed on the same moisture basis, right? So an easy way, I don't want to go through a bunch of numbers on how to do this, how to calculate it, but basically an easy general way to remember this is to just multiply the guarantees for the canned food times 4. I don't want you guys to be fooled. Canned food usually has more protein than dry food does. That's a quick hint.
That's a quick hint. Okay. So multiply by 4 if you're trying to compare,
your protein level, exactly, because your moisture is so much greater in the canned. It might say that the canned has, for instance, a crude protein of 7%, and then you're comparing to dry and say, well, my dry has 30%, so the dry must have more protein. But you're not comparing on an apples to apples basis, because there's so much more moisture content in the canned food, and you have to convert it so that you're looking at them both on a dry matter basis.
Okay, excellent. And then what is the nutritional adequacy statement? What can you tell us about that?
Okay, this is actually one of the most important parts of a dog or cat food label. Okay, so a complete or balanced pet food, which should always be listed on the front. Complete and balanced. Okay, complete and balanced food, dog or cat food, must be substantiated for nutritional adequacy by one of 2 ways. The first method is for the pet food to contain ingredients formulated to provide levels of nutrients that meet an established profile. Currently, the AAFCO, the established profile is the AAFCO dog or cat food nutrient profiles that they use. Okay, so our nutritional adequacy statement is right here, and it reads: poultry, real turkey, and sweet potato recipe is formulated to meet the nutrient levels established by the AAFCO dog food nutrient profiles for growth and maintenance. And this means that the product contains the proper amount of all recognized essential nutrients needed to meet the needs of that healthy animal. Now, I want to go back to the words growth and maintenance, because I want to help you understand what that means. Growth is for puppies and kittens, okay? And maintenance is what is talked about for adult dogs and cats. And those adults include seniors. So, and those are, life stages. And so when, you'll often see food that is marked puppy food or great for large breed dogs or, large breed puppies or whatever. If it says growth on the back of that bag in that statement, that is for puppies. It doesn't mean that you have to stamp it on the front of the bag saying that it's for puppies. The growth tells you that it's for puppies. Okay. But it's also good for adult pets as well. Okay. The alternative method of substantiating the nutritional adequacy is for the product to be tested using the appropriate AAFCO feeding trial protocols. And this is where the food has been fed to dogs or cats under strict guidelines and found to provide proper nutrition for them. And an example of this statement would read, animal feeding tests using AAFCO procedures substantiate that the name of the product provides complete and balanced nutrition. So regardless of which method is used, the nutritional adequacy statement is extremely important, and also will state the life stages, as I mentioned, growth or maintenance, that it's been formulated for. A product that is labeled, this product is intended for intermittent or supplemental feeding only, is not complete and balanced and is not intended for the sole nourishment of an animal. These would be treats, supplements, or snacks, and that would be listed on the back of the bag because they are not complete and balanced. You would never only feed treats to your pet, right? You need to feed a food and you supplement with treats.
That's like me just always only having dessert for meals. I mean, I sometimes I do it. I know I probably shouldn't, but
we're not talking about you right now, Roger. You're not my example.
It's probably not complete and balanced when I do, but no, that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting that how you talked about the two different ways that you can still make that nutritional adequacy statement, both following AAFCO guidelines, but the first was having the statement that that the nutrient profiles are used, and the second being the one that actual testing was done.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
And all of our recipes follow the former, the first one, right? We use nutrient profiles that were used, not the animal testing. I think the far majority of pet foods, I believe, in the market really follow that first method. Is that true?
Many do. I mean, there's many that do the testing and then they grandfather their other formulas into them. That would be more your very large companies out there, your science companies that are out there, but many companies do it the way we do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wonderful. This is good. We're getting good stuff. These are all these little secrets on the back of the package that look like it was a different language, and we're learning to read the language. So thank you. This is great. Okay, so maybe and I'll look to see what other questions, but I know one thing that I'm sure a lot of people have questions about is there's often some confusion around the amount of product to feed your pets, and obviously every bag has feeding guidelines. Help us understand the accuracy of those, what we should do if we feel like our experience is maybe different from what the package is telling us, and we're like, I'm not sure that's really working for my pet. Help us a little bit on the feeding guidelines on the package.
Okay, so many of you are familiar with the feeding guidelines, and that's on our bag. It's this area over here, the big box that tells you, if your pet weighs this and is this old, this is how much you should feed. Okay. But feeding guidelines are really just that. They're guidelines. They're a place to start. They're projected feeding amounts only. There are lots of factors, you guys, that can influence food intake, such as what breed the pet is, their metabolism, their daily activity. Are they very active or very, or not very active? How old are they? What's their age? Their genetics, their environment. the outdoor temperature actually plays a big role, okay, in it as well. And there's other factors, okay? So there should be a disclaimer stating this on every bag, and ours is right here. There is a disclaimer that explains that these are guidelines only. The guidelines on the bag try to cover all these contingencies, right? And therefore may be maybe more than what you actually need to feed your pet. In fact, it's probably certain that it's going to be more than what you need to feed your pet. And this is on everybody's. It's not Pawtree specific, it's everybody's guidelines. Now, at Pawtree, we have a pet profile that takes all these things into account and gives you a more accurate guideline based on the information you share with us about your pets and you put into your profile. So you'll get a little bit more accuracy, if you will, with ours, with Pawtree, just because you've shared information and we know a little bit more about your pet.
That's really helpful. It does make a lot of sense. And I know, sometimes even with our own pets, the appetite can vary at times of the year, different seasons maybe, right? I mean, I think,
that's why I was talking about the temperature outside. Yes.
Yes. Okay. And so that's why I think we just have to always, as pet parents, use good judgment, use the guidelines as what they are, guidelines, right? And if we feel like our pets are getting, overweight on how much we're feeding, we should feed less. And if they're seeming to be losing weight or too skinny, then we can feed more, as long as we've got the right recipe. Sometimes it's the wrong recipe that causes overweight or underweight, but sometimes it's the right recipe. We're just feeding too much or too little of the right recipe. And we can just kind of watch and monitor our pets and use the guidelines as guidelines, just like you said.
Yeah. Exactly. Sometimes there's food that is high, very high protein and very high fat, and that can be too rich for many of our pets' tummies. So that may not be the right food for them, right? And what you'll see there is that the pet gets sick, and they'll either throw up or they'll have some diarrhea. The other thing that I think people need to remember is that if you're switching from one food to another, so I'm going to say you're switching from food A to Pawtree, just because it's, because we're talking Pawtree, and you notice that you're feeding them the same. I feed a cup of brand A, so I'm going to feed a cup of Pawtree also. Well, sometimes the pet will not eat all of the Pawtree food, and you're thinking, they ate all of the other. They must not like it as much, right? But that's not necessarily the case. Pawtree is very nutrient dense. So what that means is the pet is getting and absorbing all these nutrients into their body and utilizing all those nutrients, okay? And getting so much more out of nutrition out of that food, so they don't need more. They'll set, like, especially dogs, many dogs will self-regulate themselves, and so they don't need to eat as much. Personal experience right now, I have a pet that has a bladder infection, and so she needs to be on a certain prescription diet that helps to make her more thirsty, so she'll ingest more water and therefore remove a lot of the bacteria and stuff that's in her system. What I notice is that those poops are so much bigger than what she normally does on the Pawtree food. And so, I can't wait to get her off of that food. It's doing its job, and I'm thrilled that it is. But I can just see all the waste that's coming out, all the stuff that she's not absorbing, all the stuff that she's not getting really much benefit from. She's just pooping it out. With Pawtree, our poops are smaller. I mean, they generally are smaller because they're formulated to do that because they're so nutritionally dense.
Somehow it's the lunch hour, and you still bring it back to the poop. We're right in the middle of eating.
Sorry, guys, it's in the
always about the poop with Brooke. You can tell a lot about a dog's poop. That was one of the lunch learns we did. What is your dog's poop telling you? It's a great one. But no, I agree with you, Brooke. That's been my experience for sure, and I do know that that's the way that we've formulated the Pawtree recipes, is to be nutritionally dense, and which means that the pet absorbs more of what you're paying for to help the body system work, and therefore less poop.
All of those claims all of the where am I? The GAs, all of that stuff. They're absorbing all of that nutrition and getting all the goodness out of the kibble. And it truly works. I'm going to also tell you that I'm also noticing a lot more gas on this other food. So I cannot wait to move her over.
Well, this is excellent. I think we've answered these, but there's a couple. You chime in, Brooke, if there's anything additional here. One, Holly asked, so what is byproduct meal? I think it's just when meal is made, instead of from the actual chicken or turkey, it's being made from the byproducts of those, like the beaks or the feet or something like that.
Exactly.
Right? So that's what a byproduct meal would be versus an actual chicken meal.
Parts that we poultry we will not put in our food.
Use in our food, yeah. And then I think another question was why remove the moisture and fat in the rendering process? I think you answered that with that's actually you have to be able to. It's almost like getting the right consistency to be able to create a kibble and make it a hard piece and put it in a bag
and hold it together. Exactly. I mean, think about a cookie. If you make a cookie and you put way too much water or oil, etc., you're never going to get the dough right. This is not dough, but it's the same thing. And in order to pack all that nutrition in, you need to take some of the moisture out.
Wonderful. This is really, really helpful. I think these seem to be the main sections of a pet food bag. That I know that I as a pet consumer have looked at and wondered about over the many years. One last question for you, Brooke, and if there's any other questions anybody has, chime in, because we're rounding third here. The last thing I'll just ask is often when you're looking at a pet food package, you're talking right now about the back, and the back is what's all kind of you have to do to be compliant and to be regulated and to be legal and so forth. On the front, there are some things that matter, but and some rules also. But the question I have is sometimes, especially in a retail store, companies who make pet food will put a couple of key bullets on the front of the bag so that it attracts the consumer to say, oh, look, that's for joint, that's got something there for joint health, or something added for brain health or something like that. And I wanted to just see if you could contrast. Most companies who do that will choose a couple of things that are that they want to really call out and market to the consumer, and they'll put those ingredients in. They obviously have to have those ingredients if they're going to make those statements, but they'll put those ingredients in, make those statements on the front, but maybe not put other ingredients in because they didn't make that statement on the front. How does that contrast to what we have done at Pottery with putting kind of the goodness in the nutrition so that consumers don't have to choose?
I think we kind of touched on this probably maybe last week in the Lunch and Learn, but we make 20 claims on our bag. And what I've said in the past is that some companies make some of these claims or similar claims,
yeah.
But nobody makes 20 of them. And we put a lot of the goodness, in the food. And I remember back when we were first looking at doing these formulations, and I was walking through the brief of exactly what we wanted to do and what claims we wanted to make, et cetera. And when I was talking with Roger about it, what so impressed me, unbelievably impressed me, was, when I was saying, look, Roger, these are all the things that people go to see their vets for. These are the most common issues people have with their pets. They have skin and coat issues. They have heart issues, eye issues, joint issues. And it's all important. You shouldn't have to choose. No pet parent should have to choose what issue is more important for their pet, because they're all important, right? And so we, talked about making sure that our food covered as many, of those issues or all of those issues as possible. And Roger was like, well, yeah, then they shouldn't have to choose. Of course not. So let's, we should put all that stuff in. And I said, but Roger, every time we make a claim, it costs money to do so. It's not inexpensive. And that's why, honestly, many companies don't make a lot of claims, because everything costs money. And Roger came back and said, but Brooke, it's important They're all important and people shouldn't have to choose. So let's do it right and let's put it all in. And I remember that meeting. I remember it clearly right now, as if I were in that conference room with you.
I do too. I really do. And I think it really speaks to the, satisfaction guarantee we have on our products. And, again, today is about education and empowering pet parents. And, whether that's somebody who chooses to use the pottery food or another food, we want to empower all pet parents to be better educated and feel confident in, understanding what's going into the food, what's on the bag, which means what's in the food and what's going into your pet. So, but I did also want to let all of you know who, might be watching and maybe haven't tried the pottery food that, we'd invite you to try it. It really is amazing. We've put our heart and soul into it to make sure that it is fabulous for every pet parent and fabulous for every pet. And that's why we have a 100% satisfaction guarantee on everything we make, because our point isn't to sell, a bag of food one time. Our point is to provide a lifetime of nutrition for pets to really make a difference in the quality of their life and impact the pet parent as well. So that's what we strive to do, and it's fun to be part of this and do it. I apologize. This has been a little bit longer. There's been some really good stuff. This has been a little bit more technical than I think.
I want to add one thing. I think we've addressed this already, but I'm seeing a comment here about, I hear that named meat meal isn't good, and I just want to make sure you guys understand or are clear. If you are comparing meals, okay, there's turkey meal, there's salmon meal, there's duck meal, there's all kinds of meals, right? If you see on a package meat meal, but it doesn't say turkey meal, it says meat meal, and you're looking at another package that says turkey meal, meat meal is not what you want. When you're comparing meals, it must be named. You want to know what animal that came from, because meat meal can come from things you do not want it to come from. I'm not going to get into it. It is lunchtime, but I'm just saying, I promise you, you do not want anything that says meat meal. And unfortunately, there are things out there. So, but it's all in your package. It's all right there, you guys. You just have to look.
This has been wonderful. I mean, the point of doing these is to help empower pet parents to feel, better about their decisions, more confident being a pet parent, knowing kind of what to look for, what questions to ask, and just honestly helping all of us feel, better and more empowered as pet parents. And I think you've really delivered on that today, Brooke. So thank you for taking time. Once again, we'll jump back on next week with another lunch and learn topic and a way to strengthen our confidence as pet parents, being good pet parents. And we'll be shorter next week, I promise. But I appreciate this was a very detailed one. Lots of kind of the nitty gritty of the back labels of the pet food packaging. So that was a wonderful one. Thanks for your time, Brooke, and thanks everybody for joining us. You guys have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.